The discovery began with a problem, not a treasure, not a tomb, a translation in a climate-controlled archive filled with thousands of ancient Mesopotamian tablets. Researchers were examining fragments that had been ignored for decades. Most were damaged beyond recognition. Others contained nothing more than inventories, trade agreements, or temple records. Then one fragment stood out. The symbols appeared ordinary at first, but as specialists reconstructed the missing sections, a disturbing pattern emerged. The text described a sequence, not a ritual, not a prayer, a sequence of experiences associated with the final moments of human life. For archaeologists, this was unusual enough, but what captured attention was the specificity. The text did not simply speak of death, it described stages, a progression, a countdown, as though someone had attempted to map the border between life and whatever comes after. And suddenly a question appeared that no one could easily answer. How could a civilization that existed over 5,000 years ago claim to understand something modern science still struggles to explain? To understand why this mystery matters, we need to travel back to ancient Mesopotamia, a world of towering ziggurats, burning deserts, temple cities rising from the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This was Sumer, the civilization often called the birthplace of recorded history. The Sumerians invented one of the world's earliest writing systems. They recorded laws, astronomical observations, mathematics, religious beliefs, and stories so old that later civilizations would copy them for thousands of years. But among their vast collection of texts were records unlike anything else. Texts describing strange beings, heavenly journeys, underground realms, and mysterious knowledge said to come from the gods themselves. According to Sumerian belief, human existence was not limited to the physical world. Life was only one phase of a much larger journey. Death was not considered an ending. It was a transition, a crossing, a passage into another state of existence. Many ancient cultures believed something similar. But the Sumerians described this transition with remarkable detail. They spoke of consciousness separating from the body. They described an awareness that continued after physical decline began. And according to some interpretations, the mysterious tablet appears to describe exactly what happens during the final 7 minutes before death. Whether this was symbolic or literal remains debated, yet the similarities to modern reports are difficult to ignore. Because in hospitals around the world, people who have survived near-death experiences often describe strikingly similar patterns: a sense of detachment, a distortion of time, memories appearing in rapid succession, a feeling of movement, a presence waiting beyond the darkness. Researchers have documented thousands of such accounts. Some scientists dismiss them as neurological effects. Others remain uncertain, and that uncertainty is where the mystery grows. Because the Sumerians should not have known these descriptions. Not thousands of years ago, not before neuroscience, not before modern medicine. Yet the tablet seems to suggest they did. According to the reconstructed translation, the process begins before physical death becomes visible, long before the final breath, long before the heart ceases completely. The text describes a fading of connection between body and awareness. As if consciousness begins withdrawing from the physical world, the senses weaken. The surrounding environment becomes distant, sounds appear distorted, time behaves strangely, moments seem longer than they should, and then something even stranger occurs. The text suggests that memories begin to emerge, not isolated memories, entire lifetimes, events long forgotten, faces unseen for decades, moments of joy, moments of regret, moments hidden deep within the mind, everything returning at once. For centuries, this description seemed purely mythical, until modern medical studies introduced an unexpected possibility. Several documented cases involving cardiac arrest have included reports of rapid memory recall during moments of extreme danger. Some individuals describe reliving significant portions of their lives in seconds. Others report an overwhelming flood of memories appearing simultaneously. Scientists still cannot fully explain why this occurs, but the similarity remains unsettling. Could the ancient description have originated from observations passed down across generations, or was something else happening? The deeper researchers investigated, the more unusual the tablet became, because after describing memory recall, the text introduces another stage, a separation, an emergence, a movement beyond the physical body. In ancient Sumerian belief, humans possessed an essence that existed independently from flesh. This essence could continue after death. The tablet describes it as a traveler preparing for departure, not vanishing, not ending. Leaving the language becomes increasingly symbolic at this point. References appear to gates, thresholds, doorways, to crossings between worlds. Ancient scribes often used such imagery to describe transitions between realities, yet one detail repeatedly appears: light, a distant source of illumination beyond darkness, a destination visible but not yet reached, and once again, modern reports create an uncomfortable parallel. Many near-death experiences include descriptions of moving toward a bright light. Some interpret this as a neurological event, others see spiritual significance. No consensus exists. But the resemblance between modern accounts and the ancient text raises a difficult question. How could two completely different eras describe such similar experiences? Coincidence? Shared psychology? Or evidence that human beings have always encountered something during the approach of death? The mystery deepens further when researchers examine the cultural context surrounding the tablet, because Sumerian priests were not simply religious leaders. They were scholars, astronomers, revered keepers, observers of the natural world. They spent centuries documenting patterns, tracking celestial events, recording human experiences, preserving knowledge for future generations. If such a tablet existed, it may represent more than mythology. It could reflect accumulated observations gathered over hundreds of years, stories from survivors, accounts passed through generations, fragments of experiences transformed into sacred knowledge. Yet another possibility exists, and it is the possibility that fascinates mystery researchers most. What if the tablet was not recording observations at all? What if it was preserving information believed to have originated elsewhere? Ancient Sumerian texts frequently refer to knowledge being transmitted from divine beings, wisdom brought from the heavens, instructions given to humanity. Most historians interpret these accounts symbolically. Yet alternative researchers see something different. They wonder whether certain traditions preserve memories of forgotten civilizations, lost cultures, knowledge inherited from a past humanity whose existence has vanished from the archaeological record. If that sounds impossible, consider this. Human history grows older every year. New discoveries constantly push the timeline of civilization further into the past. Ancient structures continue appearing in places where none were expected. Sophisticated engineering emerges from cultures once considered primitive. Again and again, history surprises us, which means one uncomfortable truth remains: we do not know everything about our past. And perhaps the people who carved these symbols knew something we have forgotten. As the investigation continued, another section of the tablet attracted attention. This section appeared less descriptive and more cautionary. The tone changed. The language became urgent. The text no longer described experiences. It delivered a warning. The final moments before death, it suggested, were important, crucial, a period during which awareness faced choices, consequences, judgments. The exact meaning remains unclear because portions of the tablet are missing, but surviving fragments imply that what occurs during this transition influences what comes next. This belief appears throughout many ancient traditions. Egyptian texts speak of judgment after death. Greek myths describe crossings into other realms. Eastern philosophies discuss karmic consequences. Yet here we find a remarkably early version of the same idea emerging from one of humanity's oldest civilizations. And perhaps that is the most fascinating aspect of the mystery, because regardless of culture, geography, or time period, human beings have repeatedly arrived at similar conclusions: that consciousness continues, that death is a passage, that something awaits beyond the threshold. Modern science remains cautious. Researchers continue studying the brain during the dying process. New discoveries reveal unexpected bursts of neural activity. Some studies have recorded surges of organized brain function near death. Others suggest consciousness may persist longer than previously believed. These findings do not prove ancient claims, but they keep the mystery alive, because every answer seems to create new questions. And that brings us back to the tablet, a fragment of clay, thousands of years old, covered in symbols carved by hands long turned to dust. A relic from a civilization separated from us by countless generations, yet somehow still speaking, still asking questions, still challenging assumptions. Did the Sumerians truly know what happens during the final 7 minutes before death? Probably not in the way sensational headlines suggest, but perhaps that misses the deeper mystery, because the real question is not whether the tablet contains literal truth. The real question is why human beings across thousands of years keep describing the same journey, the same transition, the same light, the same sense that something exists beyond the boundary we call death. And until science can fully explain those experiences, until every mystery surrounding consciousness is solved, The ancient tablet remains what it has always been, a message from the distant past, a fragment of forgotten knowledge. A whisper carried across 5,000 years, and a reminder that some of humanity's oldest questions remain unanswered, because somewhere between life and death, between history and myth, between science and mystery, the truth may still be waiting to be discovered.